It's time for
DodgerHeads.
Hi, everyone, and welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Matthew Moreno, filling in for our usual host, Jeff Spiegel. He is, as he tweeted tonight, he's at a Christmas party, so he may or may not have a Christmas sweater on. If you've been listening to the last few episodes, he may or may not be eating turkey tonight. We're going to have to get a full rundown from Jeff once he's back Tuesday night, or maybe we add an impromptu show tomorrow with the winter meetings going on. But while I'm pinch hitting, if you will, Anthony's the usual Sunday night staple that everybody's accustomed to seeing. Anthony, how have things been going?
They've been good. I've been doing some Laker Nation stuff over there with Trevor too, so that's been nice. So yeah, keep him busy with everything. Waiting for the Dodgers to do something. So other than that, I spent the part of my evening today being pissed about the Fernando stuff not getting into the Hall of Fame. We'll talk about that later, but yeah, that's pretty in my eyes despicable. So I'll have takes when we get to that part of the show.
Yeah, I definitely feel like that's going to be an impassioned segment that we have tonight. If you missed it, the Hall of Fame voted in through the contemporary era ballot committee. Jeff Kent was the only selection. Fernando Valenzuela was on there, along with Gary Sheffield, Don Mattingly. I think that was the main four with ties to the Dodgers, and there were four others as well. Barry Bonds, I think, as well. I apologize for not remembering everybody else on there, but we will obviously focus on the Fernando Valenzuela angle, as Anthony mentioned. That is one of the topics we're going to discuss tonight. I want to thank everybody who's joining us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Blue Sky, Threads. I know we post that on there as well. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please take a moment right now and do so. Hit the like button on this video as well. That gives us a big boost in terms of getting our content out and continuing to grow the channel, which all of you have helped us do immensely over this past 2 years, really, with the World Series runs that the Dodgers have been on. And if you're listening after the fact via podcast, we appreciate you as well. You could subscribe, rate, review, leave us any sort of feedback you have, I say positive or negative. We are certainly open to constructive criticism and always trying to improve and get better and give you guys the type of content you want to hear and or watch if you're visual with us. So as Anthony mentioned, Fernando Valenzuela Hall of Fame, that is on the docket, but we're going to start off tonight with some free agency stuff. Anthony, you mentioned it, it's kind of waiting for the Dodgers to do something. It feels like the biggest updates we've gotten recently over the past few days was a potential Teoscar Hernández trade, which I know you and Jeff and Bruce and Scott have all sort of tackled. I haven't fully shared my thoughts. I think we were discussing, before this show started tonight, why, like, we both agree it doesn't really make sense. All of that being said, it's no secret that the Dodgers need an outfielder in some regard, whether you want to consider it a left fielder, center fielder, right fielder. They do have some versatility, at least with being able to move some of those pieces around. Kyle Tucker, Anthony, I know much to not Kyle Hendricks. I've seen
Hendricks.
Kyle Tucker is out there. He reportedly visited with the Blue Jays. Heading into the offseason, the Dodgers were mentioned as a potential landing spot for him. But Bob Nightingale reported today, of our good friend Bob Nightingale of USA Today, he mentioned that the Dodgers will, I think the way he worded it was dip their toes in the water for the likes of Kyle Tucker, Cody Bellinger, and Edwin Diaz as well. But the reality, or at least the reports, indications, however you want to take this, are that the Dodgers prefer to get Harrison Bader and Robert Suarez, of course, the Padres.
Yeah.
I'll let you take it. If you want to focus on either one of those two guys,
Yeah.
go for it. We can go from there.
I'll start with the dipping their toe into the Tucker Bellinger waters. For me, what that means, I think, is that they've done some due diligence there and just said, hey, checking in, any interest there in a short-term deal for either guy, that kind of thing. I do not believe that they are real players for either guy. For Tucker, if he goes beyond like 4 years, which obviously the projections are like 6 or 7 at minimum, and for Bellinger, like anything beyond 2, basically, it may be a third they could sneak in there if it's a vesting option or a team option or something like that. But I really do not see them as real players in either of those markets at the moment. Both guys' markets would have to crash for the Dodgers to get involved, which has happened before. It's not completely out of the question. But I do think that every free agent out there, essentially, who is expecting big money, if the Dodgers haven't called them, they're calling the Dodgers. Their agents are, because they want the Dodgers involved. Because if you can spout a rumor out there that the Dodgers they've asked about so and so, it gets the market moving, and the Dodgers are always a threat underneath the surface to give somebody a 2-year deal that's worth $80 million. You know what I mean? And so, like, I think what happens with the people trying to get that wheel in motion there is that they're just trying to drive prices up. And so if they can say that the Dodgers are involved, it means, like, tack on a little bit more, because you're going to have to beat the Dodgers out either in years or in money, that kind of situation. But I don't think they're realistic players for either of those outfielders. On the Bader thing, I had him as a backup. My ideal target for the outfield was Byron Buxton, and then you shift Teo to left, you move Paez to right, and I think you have in that sort of scenario, you have 2 elite defensive players in your outfield, and then you just cover for Teo as much as you can.
Yeah.
Sounds like the Twins at the moment aren't going to be selling. We're not a Twins pod, but they're going to have an incredibly interesting winter, I think, going forward, now that they've made this declaration that basically says we're not selling, even though they sold at the deadline last season. So moving on from that, not wanting to, like, let's say Bellinger is going to command like a 5-year kind of deal, then I think Bader makes the most sense, just in terms of like raising your floor defensively in the outfield, which then still allows you to move, I think, Paez to right field, where I legitimately believe he can be a Gold Glove finalist. And so you move him there, move Taylor to left, and I think you have at least the semblance, the floor of a pretty good outfield defense. What Bader's offense looks like, I think anything above 100 OPS plus or weighted runs created plus is a bonus for that. And so I would be totally okay with it. I think they have enough offense when healthy in that lineup. You get a healthy Teo, his down season was 25 homers, 90 RBI. And, there were some other things in there too, but he was also injured. But like, if he's healthy and he has a 30-100 kind of season, that's again that elite right-handed bat in the middle of the order that they were, asking for. So, those things make that lineup completely fine, in my opinion. Going to the bullpen side, I think based on what's come off the board, my top option there was Devin Williams. He's gone. I think now when you look at what else is out there, I was very much off of Robert Suarez when the offseason started, but looking at what the landscape is now, I'd be fine with it. I can't see the Dodgers giving a guy like that more than 3 years. He's going to be 35, I think, or he
is older.
Yeah. And so, he's had 2 seasons of sub 3 ERAs, more than 60 innings pitched. His FIP this last season was under 3 as well. So, I'd be fine. Like, if that was a deal that they made, like, all right, cool. There's you added another leverage arm to the back of the bullpen. So look, I think they do stuff like that. And they come out looking okay.
Yeah, I agree. I think you brought up excellent points with Bader. Let's focus on Bader really quick. It's about like reasonable expectations with him, right?
Totally.
Like you're not gonna sign Harrison Bader and expect him to hit the way you would Teoscar Hernandez. So to your point, if the benefit of adding somebody like Harrison Bader is defensively, like I think that works. They won a World Series this past season, without Michael Conforto being anywhere close to league average, which is really, as you mentioned, when the lineup is sort of going like Harrison Bader won't, just the way Michael Conforto didn't. He's not going to dictate whether or not the Dodgers win a World Series. That's coming down to Shohei Ohtani, Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, Teoscar Hernandez, Will Smith. Like it's coming down to those guys.
Yeah.
And you bring up the outfield alignment, like that is another factor to all of this, right? Is the Dodgers can pick, like they've been connected to Brendan Donovan as well, who's more of a left fielder, which fine, like maybe that helps. Like what I'm curious to see, as much as we mentioned at the opening of this show that we don't anticipate a Teoscar Hernandez trade.
Right.
I would be surprised if he's not playing left field in 2026. Is that a fair assessment?
I think it would not be a surprise to me. I think it's the team's preference. Look, he's been bad defensively both seasons that he's been a Dodger. He's been a bad defender for a long time.
He's a DH.
There's no surprises there. He can't be a DH because Shohei's on this team. So I think ideally what the Dodgers do is they find a guy who can play right field, or I think preferably a guy who's really good in center field defensively. You could move Pages over to right, where again, I think he's very capable of winning a Gold Glove at that position. He's a much improved center fielder, but I think you move him to right, you see a guy he's a game-changing type of outfielder in right field, I think, especially with that arm. And then you move Teo to left, and we had this discussion during the season. More balls get hit to left field, but the impact of a bad defender in left field is lesser in left than it is in right, where Teo was stationed last season. And I think that's part of the reason why some of those gaffes stuck out a little bit more. Aside from like there was the effort part of it, which is always going to stand out, but like they hurt more in right field than they do in left field. So I'm with you. I think ideally for this team, and I think this is how the Dodgers are thinking, they're able to move him back to left.
Yeah. And I know when I went through an offseason, sort of center outfielders exercise with, I think it was Jeff and Bruce. I was okay with Bader. I know that you mentioned some of the offensive stuff. There's some concern. I think he's coming off kind of a career type year, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
He is. He had a 117 OPS plus and weighted runs created as a right. Rants usually give or take some there. I think OPS plus is a very similar thing. But before that, he hadn't posted an above league average season since 21. So, yeah, he kind of had a bit of a career year last season. Look, maybe he found something. Maybe it was a contract year.
Right.
Also, maybe the Dodgers, with what they are able to do with guys who haven't been great offensively and for their history, can get him to somewhere around 100, 105 kind of weighted runs created or whatever. So league average or maybe even a little bit better. But I think defensively is why you're going to pay that guy, because he'll lock down center field for you. He'll be a really good defender. He allows 2 of your 3 positions there to be above average defensively. And then, like I said, you take what you get with Teo at that point. And then hopefully he's healthy where his offense is can kind of negate whatever defensive deficiencies he has.
Yeah, I do with Bader, my concern, and with a lot of these free agency scenarios that we discuss, of course, like it is, always within kind of reason type thing. And if like I don't think the Dodgers would, but I wouldn't overpay for Harrison Bader because there are some of the offensive concerns, right? Like you're not getting a kind of guaranteed, all around player in that sense. And so while I'm open to Harrison Bader, do I think that he is necessarily worth a potential 4 or 5 year type deal? Probably not. I think at that point you're better off exploring other options, maybe internally, and then kind of kicking the can down the road. As much as the Dodgers hate the trade deadline, like they have shown, a willingness that if they have clear needs and if they need to make a move, they will do it. So that's that. With the Suarez one is interesting to me because, as you mentioned, there's the age factor.
And also, real quick, to that Bader thing. Sorry, Matt. The Bader thing too. I think the benefit of that. Look, he's not anyone's number one option. I think that's understood. With him, I think you can get him on a really short deal, like 2+1 or something like that. So I think the risk also is much less on a guy like that. If let's say he tanks offensively, I think a 2-year kind of deal isn't bad anyway, because at least he's going to give you something.
Yeah, that's fair. And if it shakes out that way, then yes, like I would be fine, perfectly comfortable with signing Harrison Bader and letting him play center field, left field, however the Dodgers want to shake that out. Suarez is an interesting case to me, mainly because I don't know. I'm not convinced that the Dodgers are real. And this, I know this isn't groundbreaking news. There have been reports suggesting this out there. I don't see them spending big on a relief pitcher. And I feel like Suarez, he's not Edwin Diaz, right? He's not, Devin Williams, but it wouldn't shock me as those guys. I mean, Diaz is still available, but Williams is off the market. Like, he is one of the better closers that is available. And so I don't see the Dodgers getting involved in that market for anybody. And I know, it was reported that they did sort of make a run at Diaz. Raisel Iglesias, he rejected, what has been reported as a similar 1-year offer to that he got to go back to the Atlanta Braves. So yeah, I mean, that all of that being said, I think that the second and third tier type of outfielder and relief pitcher, which Suarez is probably second tier, I think, relative to some of those, that is definitely, like, if we want to just discuss kind of blanket expectations for the Dodgers this offseason, I think that is what we're looking at. And frankly, I will take that a step further and say I feel like they're probably more likely to even go the trade route rather than make big moves in free agency.
Yeah. I think that's fair. I would say the trade route for the outfield feels more likely than it does in the bullpen at this point. I just don't know what impact needle moving relievers might be available on the trade market right now. I think in the outfield, you can find some that would be, could fill those holes. Will it be a guy who can play center field? We'll see. But I think that's always a possibility with this team. And they're going to want to do their shopping now rather than in July, right? We know that. And so I do feel like you see both of those fixes happen in the wintertime versus, waiting until the trade deadline happens.
All right. Before I get to these super chats, as a reminder, if you are with us on YouTube and you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Hit the like button on this video. We're going live during the offseason. Our planned schedule for these night shows are Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday nights. Then Scott does his DodgerHead Unplugged shows at 12 p.m. in the afternoon on Wednesdays and Fridays. We mix in some interviews if we're at different events. If we record, kind of on a specific topic, we weren't able to go live. Maybe it doesn't warrant necessarily doing a full live show. We'll record videos, put them up. We have interviews, things of that nature. So please hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so yet. And let's get to a couple of super chats. I apologize for not doing them sooner. We were kind of in the middle of discussing all that.
I was ranting.
YouTube has changed the way these display names change.
I hate that. I don't know why they did that.
It's a complete mess now. So I have seen this picture. I don't think Smile51 is the username I'm accustomed to reading with it. But he says, if the Dodgers don't trade, is Bader greater than looks at Ryan Ward?
I think so, because there's no guarantee that Ward can hit at the big league level. And I think I think we do know probably it's a guarantee that he cannot defend at a big league level. He couldn't defend in the minor leagues. So I think with Bader, for me, he's the safe option because he's a floor raiser for you defensively. If he's bad, if he stinks with the bat, let's say he gives you like Conforto type numbers. which nobody wants to relive, at least the guy can go run down the ball.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're not going to see the complete disaster class that the corner outfield defense was this year. You're going to see two really, really good defenders in the outfield and Teo in left. If Bader happens, like, right, let's say that. And so I do think it probably makes this team better versus than just Ward. Now, if Ward surprises us and he can hit at the big league level and he's going to be a 30 homer kind of guy, I mean, look, I'm not making that prediction. But then if he's really bad in left field, then, you know, you just you live with it because he's producing offensively. I don't anticipate that happening. I don't think the Dodgers anticipate that happening. If they did, they wouldn't be on the market for an outfielder. So yeah, I think, you know, given those two options, I would take Bader.
Yeah, I do agree. I think, again, we discussed this during the season as the Dodgers had a clear need in left field and Ryan Ward could not crack the roster. I mean, he did everything he could down at the AAA level, and since then the Dodgers have at least Brandon Gomes mainly, I think, is who has primarily commented on Ryan Ward during the GM meetings. You know, sort of gave him credit for that and said they're, you know, evaluating him as a potential candidate to play some left field. He's obviously added on to the 40-man roster. So that was sort of the first step to that becoming a possibility. But I do agree. I mean, I think for me, and we've said this, so I don't want to completely rehash it. The Dodgers not calling up Ryan Ward this year at any point when there was Michael Conforto was struggling throughout pretty much the entire season outside of, you know, 2 weeks here, a week here early before, you know, the All-Star break. And Ryan Ward still couldn't get called up. And so I think that sort of was an indication of what the front office thought of him, at least at the time. You know, maybe they saw some development and growth and now they have a different view.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it was just telling, like, you know, the 40-man roster situation was a little bit of an impediment for bringing him in, but they also were DFAing guys. Like, I mean, like, you know, there were opportunities for them to say, you know what, we're going to give Ryan Ward a shot. And the fact that they never did, I think, tells you kind of what they think of him in terms of, like, can this guy be an everyday player for us at the big league level? You know, I think they brought him onto the 40-man roster and said, like, you know, hey, if nothing pans out, you know, maybe we platoon him and call. But I think that was sort of just maybe desperation is too strong a word, but it was kind of a desperation move of, like, look, let's just have him here in case we need him.
Yeah, I agree. A couple more super chats here. The next one's from Richard. It says, the Latino neighborhood was torn down to build Dodger Stadium. For years, Mexicans never forgot that until Fernando came. He brought back the Latino fan base. His influence alone is Hall of Fame worthy. Yeah, it's you know, Dodgers have a complicated history with the Latino fan base. Obviously, you know, if you go back to before they came from Brooklyn, Fernando Valenzuela very much is the catalyst for repairing that and making it what it is today. So, Richard, this is well said. I think these are some of the same thoughts Anthony and I are going to share as we get into kind of our focus segment on Fernando and the Hall of Fame voting. But thank you, Richard, for that super chat and always being in here. I recognize that username, even though it's changed a little bit. It still looks a lot like his normal one. This one, too, from Jay says, do either of y'all think Kim can improve enough to be a valid option in center field, even as part-time? Then he and Edman can split, you know, 75-25 center field and second base. I think Kim certainly is athletic enough to figure it out. I think the question with playing time for Ha-Seong Kim, whether it's center field or second base, is he going to hit?
Yeah. I think if he hit, they would live with, like, him figuring it all out on the fly in center field. Because, like you said, he's athletic enough. He just never had played the position ever until this season. So, you know, there's a ton of that learning curve that he would be doing on the job. They did it with Gavin Lux, right? Like, so I think they would be fine doing it with Kim if he was producing offensively. With that said, I don't think they see it as a viable option at this point.
Yeah, I agree. We have another super chat that came in. 300 GJW says, if they go Bader, they upgrade the defense a lot. I'd still like them to get Donovan and move Tommy Edman to a super utility role, aka CT3. I think a la CT3 type thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's another, you know, Brendan Donovan, he's been a popular name this offseason. and both for the Dodgers and it seems across Major League Baseball, which in turn might preclude or prevent the Dodgers from completing a trade, because if there is all this interest in him, then the Cardinals can certainly set a high bar for their return.
Yeah, which I think is already happening. I think the market for him is already expensive, or the price for him is already expensive, and the market is deep. He's probably the top choice at this point. Like if Byron Buxton is off the board, then I think it goes now to Donovan. But that's going to be a long negotiation. Let's just, if the Dodgers do find a way to land him, I think, it's not going to happen anytime soon. I don't think, because there are so many players for a guy like that who can play a few different positions, who can produce with the bat. And so, the Dodgers might make an offer, and that offer is going to get shopped by the Cardinals, or a team, who really wants him is going to make their offer, and then they're going to shop that. So, I would say like he would be my number one guy at this point to fill the outfield hole. But if we're saying just strictly a guy who's only going to cost you money and not prospect capital, then I think probably at this point, all things considered, I would go Bader. Like I said, unless the markets for Bellinger and Tucker crater, that's a different conversation then.
Yeah. Maybe the Dodgers will call the Cardinals and say, hey, we'll take Nolan Arenado once and for all as well. But what percentage of the fan base do you think is still clamoring for Arenado at this point?
I would hope zero, but if Max Muncy if opening day comes around and Max Muncy goes 0 for 4, Arenado's name is going to get brought up somewhere.
Maybe that might hey, take it. If you want Donovan, then it's Arenado as well. All right, let's get on to our next topic. If you haven't seen it, Bill Plunkett of the Orange County Register put out an article this afternoon where he had some quotes from Andrew Friedman kind of discussing a few different aspects of the roster. And one thing that stuck out to me were comments from Friedman about the outfield and the bullpen. And so I'm going to paraphrase and kind of read some of it to you. One of the quotes said that, Friedman acknowledged that adding basically a position player to the roster is something the Dodgers are certainly evaluating and looking at, and that he called, quote, figuring out our outfield is what Plunkett then paraphrased as a top offseason priority for the Dodgers. Friedman went on to say, though, quote, but we're also not going to force anything. It could be an opportunity for some guys that we have. That's part of what we're spending a lot of time on this winter, trying to figure out the optimal configuration for our position player group. We have some versatility, and with versatility comes more options in terms of how to deploy different guys. Now, I want to pair this with, as you can see on if you're watching with us, we have a banner. If you're listening, and if you're only listening, I'll fill you in. We have a banner up that's sort of suggesting that Andrew Friedman may have tipped his hand, if you will, in terms of what the Dodgers view as more of a priority in the offseason. Then regarding the bullpen, Friedman said, quote, I think we have a lot of talented relievers coming back next year and feel like it will be a strength. Obviously, there's a lot of noise that takes place in the performance of that group, but the performance is critical. So if we can augment it and enhance it, we will. But I don't feel like it's a necessity. That end part says a lot. Andrew Friedman is you and I have both been around him. We've covered the Dodgers, been around Friedman, other executives. Andrew Friedman doesn't say things by mistake. He is very smart and I'll say calculating with what he puts out there with his quotes. I took this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, as the Dodgers certainly view, and I think with reason, the outfield, again, whether it's left field, center field, right field, however you want to look at that, the one spot they have out there as more of an issue, more of a priority, more of a focus than they are with the bullpen.
Totally agree. And we said, like, look, when Jeff and Daniel and myself did a show a couple of weeks ago where we sort of did our ideal offseason, or like what we think was within reason. And for me, the bullpen was Devin Williams, or I think they fix it internally.
Yeah.
And I think that if like, let's say Suarez commands 3 years, $50 million, something like that. I don't know that the Dodgers play in that arena. Is that because it's Suarez specifically, whereas for like
Devin Williams, if that type of, because I think that is more or less what he signed for. Was it 351 or something?
3 and 58 for Williams. Yeah,
Oh,
I think for Williams, I think they would have gone
okay
to like, we don't know what their final offer was, but like, let's say 3 and 50 or 3 and 45 would have been reasonable for them. They're definitely not then going 3 and 50, let's say, for Suarez, where his representation may say the market has been set between Williams, Helsley, and then Diaz is going to get 5 years. Like the market for Suarez is going to be 3 and 50 or something like that, right? Let's say the Dodgers aren't comfortable there. Then I think the internal options, the guys getting healthy, the starters that they will convert to relievers, like, hoping for a bounce back season from Tanner Scott, which I think is totally reasonable. I think I won't say like he's going to be, I would not say at this point like he's going to be the Tanner Scott that they signed, who they thought what they were getting. But I think,
hopefully won't be a repeat of 2025.
He tumbled through the floor last season. He's got to be better than that. Like that's kind of what I'm going on. He's got to be better than he was last season. So I think with all of those things, I think they feel okay that if they don't sign that big name, needle moving back into the bullpen kind of arm, they have the options internally, and then they'll probably add some fringe pieces here and there, right? That they can put together still a pretty good bullpen. Because I think before guys were getting hurt and guys were getting taxed, they had the makings of a pretty good pen. Even with Tanner Scott's struggles, they were still going to be a pretty solid bullpen. But then Evan Phillips gets hurt, and and then guys start going down, and then guys start getting tired, and yada yada yada. We don't have to rehash all of that, but I think all that said, I think that the front office would feel okay if they had to go internal to solidify the pen versus having to go internal, Ryan Ward, Alex Call, to plug the hole in left field.
Yeah, definitely. The options that they have internally are certainly in the bullpen are more reassuring, maybe is one way to put it, compared to, the outfield picture right now. And that being said, I don't want to contradict some of my prior thoughts, because I've been critical of the Dodgers at the trade deadline when they say, hey, for instance, this year, they addressed their bullpen by trading for Brock Stewart, who had, kind of his own injury history in the past. And the Dodgers already, they were it was sort of when they take the approach of, we're going this route because we're counting on XYZ happening internally for us. I think that becomes, you play with fire a little bit. And when you need, 80 to 100% of the outcome to be in your favor, that's a dangerous game to play. And we saw it didn't happen for them in terms of the bullpen this year. They were able to augment that and figure it out by having just their starting pitchers take up a bunch of innings in the playoffs, and it worked. And if that could happen again next year, I'm sure they'll certainly be open to repeating it. That being said, I do agree that in this sense, I think they would be better off to say, hey, Brusdar Graterol, he's supposed to be coming back, so they can let's count on him as much as he is bouncing back from shoulder surgery. Hopefully, he still can recapture some form. You mentioned Tanner Scott. I'll even put Blake Trinan in that boat.
Absolutely, yeah. Brock Stewart when he's back.
Stewart as well, getting healthy. So and maybe even Evan Phillips. I mean, that one obviously is a little bit. It's Tommy John, so there's there's concern with any of these pitchers coming back from whether it's shoulder or Tommy John. It's kind of one and the same. But yeah, I agree with you, because then if that in the meantime, maybe Emmett Sheehan cracks the rotation, but Ben Kasparias, I don't really know. I don't see him as a starter. I think his success came as a relief pitcher, and things went off the rails for him when they ran out of starting pitchers and they needed to sort of turn him into a pseudo starter and then move him back into the bullpen or use an opener in front of him and stuff like that. So maybe Kasparias, helps stabilize your bullpen as well.
Yeah. Robleski too.
Robleski is another option. I don't know. I don't see him as fitting into the rotation, even with, some of the injuries the Dodgers certainly, because then you're also, in terms of starting pitchers, you have River Ryan, Gavin Stone coming back. Those guys should be available to help eat up some innings if they need to.
Right.
But yeah, anyway, the main point of this was I thought it was pretty interesting that, Andrew Friedman sort of publicly put out there hey, the bullpen, like it's not necessarily a focal point for us. Maybe it is someone negotiating through the media, if you will. We're obviously not privy to all the different conversations they might be having with players and representatives and stuff of that nature. And maybe, as you mentioned, Robert Suarez's agency is driving, I'm speculating here, but perhaps they're driving a hard bargain and Friedman's trying to get out there and say, look, like we feel like we don't need the Dodgers, don't need to add to their bullpen, and perhaps they will just focus on the outfield instead. As we're discussing the bullpen, what about Kenley Jansen reunion? You open to that at all on one year deal?
I mean, I don't know if this has changed, but early in the winter, the rumor was that he still wanted to be a back end kind of guy.
Yeah,
I'm not willing to do that with him. If he's okay to be kind of a wherever they need, then sometimes that might be the sixth inning or something like that. Then I think you have a talk with him, because I think he had the kind of season where it's like, all right, yeah, we'll have a conversation with you. But like, he's not a leverage guy for me anymore. Like look, if they want to sign him to one of those 1-day deals so he retires a Dodger, obviously I'm all for that. Like him being part of a bullpen that has, three-peat aspirations, I'm not sure I want him in high leverage spots, with this team right now.
Yeah. And in terms of role, I mean, I'm obviously things can change and we haven't had anything definitive from Kenley, but I'm inclined to believe he certainly would prefer to be a closer. I know he's chasing, was it 400 saves or 500 saves? I forget what number he's kind of close to. So I imagine that's probably on the radar for him. All right. Our next topic is we're discussing potential acquisitions and things of that nature. The winter meetings. Anthony, let me ask, do you consider the winter meetings as having started tonight or tomorrow? Because I know semantics like media and things of that nature are arriving in Orlando tonight.
Yeah.
But some people say that they don't actually start until tomorrow. I go with tonight because MLB Network brought their broadcast tonight. You're arriving tonight, but where do you stand on the controversial question as to when the winter meetings begin?
Yeah, I mean, like for the work, like I remember having to go to them. Like they started like Saturday for us, right? I think the dates, I believe, don't start until I want to say Monday's the first day.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So yeah, I think technically, if we're going by that, I think it actually starts Monday. But yeah, I can guarantee you things are happening tonight.
Yeah, there we go. We're discussing it tonight. So for our sake, the winter meetings have started tonight out in Orlando. We've gone over, kind of needs for the Dodgers roster throughout the offseason. Obviously, we just discussed some various options and things of that nature. In your ideal world, whether if it's one outfielder, if it's two position players plus a relief pitcher, if it's just one trade maybe this week, like let's focus on just the winter meeting specifically. So this week, if there's one move the Dodgers should make in your world, what would that be?
I think it's plugging the outfield hole. Whether that's Donovan, whether that's Bader, whether that's they found a way to get Bellinger on a 2-year deal, something like that. I think that is the ideal situation coming out of here. Now, if you ask me, okay, the winter meetings are going to be over. What's the name that you want the Dodgers to have added to this roster? I would say Donovan at this point. If let's assume Buxton is off the table. Anytime I say anything about any of these outfielders, it's with that caveat because Buxton is my 1A. But if the Twins are serious about like trying to compete again, and he really is off of the table, they're not going to move him, then it would be Donovan at this point.
Yeah. I'm going to say Buxton, just because I'll use the liberty of saying in an ideal world.
I like it, Matt. Yes.
In an ideal world type thing. So if in a perfect scenario, the Dodgers call the Twins, they say, look, who are you guys trying to kid? Like you're going to end up probably selling at the deadline anyway. Let's get this over with now.
Right.
Let's figure something out. and get get Byron Buxton, over to LA. It would of course require Buxton waiving his no trade clause, which there were indications that he was open to that because of the direction that the Twins were going in. Then that was followed up by the Twins, kind of not reversing course from the trade deadline this year, not so much this offseason yet, but indications being that the Twins actually are going to try and build, I feel like might be too strong, be competitive in that division. I know they're going through some ownership stuff and things of that nature.
Here's my thing. If you're not going to add this offseason, you're not going to sign anybody, you're not going to make any big trades that are going to move the needle, then what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, start to tear it down. Maybe they feel like they can't because they got some big contracts on the books. I mean, like maybe one, but like even Buxton at this point is like incredibly reasonable. If he were a free agent this season coming off of the year he just had, I mean, he's probably looking at $100 million, right?
Yeah. I mean, I forget how old. Let me look it up really quick.
He is, good question.
So he's 31. He's going to be turning 32 on December 18th.
So he'd be going into his age 32 season. Man, he's 32. I'm old, dude.
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Like, I'm surprised that he's only going to be 32. I feel like he's been around forever.
Yeah, he came up quick. I mean, he barely spent any time in the minors. He was that good as a prospect.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's got 3 and 54 left on the deal. I think even if he's hurt a lot during, if you trade for him and he's hurt a lot during that deal, 3 years and $54 million. Like the Dodgers find that in the couch cushions at this point.
And that's what Jay is asking. Is Buxton moving the needle knowing he's always hurt?
And it's a fair question. It's a totally fair question. Anybody with apprehension there it's totally valid concern. Yeah. But I think the Dodgers have shown, look, when a guy raises your ceiling that much, and this guy does it on both sides of the ball. He's a Gold Glove caliber center fielder, and he's maybe not an MVP level offensive player, but he's easily an all-star level offensive player. Then I think you do it. And we've seen them do it on the pitching side, right? Glasnow, Snell, they've gone out and taken those risks and taken those gambles and made those bets on guys who have incredibly high ceilings, but their health has been a little bit of a question mark. And, if there were ever a time to believe in Buxton's health, it's coming off of this last season.
Hawaiian Kier is asking, would Buxton be every day or platoon? He would be every day, with the caveat that the Dodgers also would take care of him in terms of rest. They're not going to run him out there for 150, 155 games.
Yeah, I think they would babysit him the way they've done with the pitchers, and make sure that he's ready come October. So he would, to answer the question, he would absolutely not be a platoon guy. He'd be an everyday guy, but they would sort of load manage him the way they do in basketball.
Yeah. This isn't being translated by YouTube, so I can't say the username. I apologize. But what about this concept as we're discussing, potential additions for the Dodgers? Toronto, the Blue Jays upgraded. And so this commenter is saying the Dodgers also need to upgrade. How much stock do you put into, for our standpoint, for our debating purposes? Andrew Friedman, is not sitting there and saying, oh, the Blue Jays just signed Dylan Cease, we need to go make our own splash. Like, the Dodgers are confident in their plan. They're going to operate with how they see putting their best roster together type thing. But how much do you put into that? How much attention should be paid to it?
Zero.
Yeah.
Zero. I mean, there's no guarantee that the Blue Jays are even going to win that division again next year. Like, it's too tight. They're not that much better than anyone else in that division. Like, the Dodgers are going to walk into next season, no matter what they do this winter, as the favorites to win the pennant in the National League. The Blue Jays are going to have to do a lot to walk into next season, I think, to be like the clear-cut favorite in the American League. They'll be up there just because they made it this year and they almost won it all. But yeah, I mean, and also Cease is not an ace. Like, he's not, he moves the needle in terms of, like, he's expensive enough to, like, garner a lot of attention. But, like, you can add another Dylan Cease to that rotation today, and that rotation's still not as good as the Dodgers rotation right now.
Yeah, and I apologize for, we're going a little bit on a tangent, but as much as we cover the Dodgers, we are a baseball show. If we can spend time on food, we can spend time on general baseball talk.
Sure, yeah, for sure.
Dylan Cease is an interesting case study. You mentioned like he has been a needle mover, enough of a name brand since he was traded by the White Sox, right? And I remember even when the Dodgers were kind of connected to him when Cease was on the trade market, sort of looking at his stats and his season and thinking, man, like this guy's going to cost that much. Like, is it really worth it? And that was in terms of prospects. And now, as a free agent, our friends Blue Jays today, who we had on, during the World Series, I know they're excited about Dylan Cease, and I get it. Like,
yeah, you got to be
for a team, like Toronto, where you weren't expecting to make it to the World Series. You obviously were within one win from winning a title. You add Dylan Cease, sure. Like, I think it's fine. What I'm curious to see is what happens now on the position player side for the Blue Jays, because obviously, Kyle Tucker, reports where he visited their spring training complex, but not much since then. It's not like that hasn't been followed with like, oh, the Blue Jays and Kyle Tucker are deep in negotiations or anything like that, or they've made a serious offer. Not to say that it hasn't, just because it isn't out there, but typically the way the news cycle works, when that stuff does happen, there are some indications of, things taking place. Bo Bichette's an interesting name to me, because, and it'll be interesting, and maybe I did pick Byron Buxton, maybe I should have changed my ideal pick to Bo Bichette signing, play him at second base next year and then figure out your infield down the line type thing. But if the Blue Jays' big move is to add Dylan Cease, and then for whatever reason they don't get Kyle Tucker, I would imagine that then they make sure they lock up Bichette. But if you don't get Bichette either, like, then what at that point type thing? And I know that that's a lot of ifs and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
no, and it's fine. Yeah, I mean, look, if they add Cease and lose Bichette, I don't know how much better they actually are. Bichette's an all-star caliber offensive player. He's finished in the top, 15 of MVP voting, give or take there, for a 3 or 4 seasons now. But if the Dodgers sign him, they sign somebody for a position that they have occupied already, and they still have to go sign an outfielder because Bo Bichette's not playing the outfield, and we don't know that Tommy Edman's is going to be healthy enough, or when he's going to be healthy enough to ever play the outfield on a regular basis.
Yeah, good point. Yeah. Well, then you talked me into saying what my perfect winter meetings plan is.
Look, if they went out and got in this situation, let's say they went out and got Bader, 2-year deal or something like that. Doesn't cost a ton. And then they went like, you know what? We're going to sign Bo Bichette, and he's agreed to play second base for us. And when Max is done, he'll transition to third base whenever that time is ready. I'm in. I'm in for that. But I don't like the idea of signing Bichette without addressing the other part that they need. Just because, like, if Tommy Edman was healthy and he said, yes, I can play center field, then I think so. Right now, as things stand, you can sign a left fielder, you can sign a center fielder, or you can sign a right fielder. And all three of those things plug the hole that is currently left field for the Dodgers, because then you just play some musical chairs and you have a really good outfield. As it stands now, if you go and if Edman was healthy, you could also throw a second baseman into all three of those outfield positions. You could say you can sign any of the 3 outfield positions or a second baseman, and that fixes second base and your outfield. Not that second base is broken, but you have coverage everywhere. Without us knowing what Tommy Edman's going to be able to do, signing a second baseman does not fix the outfield situation. It just now makes Tommy Edman sort of an odd man out, I think. Because if he can't play the outfield and he's healthy, when does he play?
Yeah, that's a great point. And the Edman thing is going to be interesting to see, because if you look at 2024, like this ankle thing he's been dealing with since last year being 2024, not last season. So he's played with it now for basically, he didn't make his 2024 debut until about midway through the year. So like a year and a half. Right. Like the ankle thing has been kind of happening off and on. He was playing center field in 2024. So you would hope, and again, you can't make this investment, to your point, you can't make this investment in Bo Bichette on a hope. So I get it. But from regardless of whether the Dodgers sign Bo Bichette or not, you would hope, I think, that Tommy Edmonds, that the surgery he had does correct whatever ankle issue was going on, and he quote unquote gets healthy and can play center field. Just from the simple fact of, again, whether Bo Bichette is part of this equation or not, Edmund being able to play center field just gives the Dodgers so much more versatility. We had a question about Ha-Seong Kim earlier. You know, it gets a chance to put him in the lineup at second base where he's more comfortable, things of that nature. But yeah, I mean, there's no guarantee, and that's not an answer you're going to know for what, about the middle of next season, where, Edmund has gotten through the first 3 or 4 months of playing center field, playing second base, and he's feeling okay.
Right. And I think too that we got at least an inkling of that Tommy Edman answer with what Andrew Friedman was talking about with the outfield being the priority over the bullpen. Because I think what that tells me is that even if Tommy Edman gets healthy enough that he can play some center field, they're not going to run him out there every day.
Yeah, it's a good point. All right, let's see. The other thing that Andrew Friedman addressed with Bill Plunkett in this comment, I've seen this being discussed across social media as well. Anthony, you and I are, I'll just say, north of 30, so we won't fully age ourselves here. But the Dodgers roster, their core players, also is approaching that, if not has surpassed. Majority of them have surpassed it as well. And so Andrew Friedman was asked, about the age factor and things of that nature. And again, this is from Bill Plunkett of the Orange County Register. Friedman said, quote, "It's front of mind for us as we look out. I wouldn't necessarily say in 2026, but it definitely is something that we're going to have to be thoughtful with how to bring along some of our talented young players and incorporate them into our core. That being said, it's a constant challenge because we have the highest of expectations going into each season. But I do think it's something we're going to have to be deliberate and thoughtful about as we look out. That doesn't necessarily mean opening day 2026. And what Friedman was discussing was, potentially getting younger and things of that nature if the Dodgers have to. Anthony, where do you fall with the age factor? We don't want to discriminate here and say the Dodgers are just a bunch of old. Hey, look, the old guys just got it done. I know Yamamoto was part of the contributing as well, but these old Dodgers team just won back-to-back World Series.
Yeah, right. Look, these are all young kids to me. I mean, I think I officially just reached my mid-40s this couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
This 40 is 40. I'm 44. I think I consider.
I was wondering why you
45,
said I
46. That's, to me, that's okay. Mid-40s.
It's fair.
So look, I'm not too concerned with it right now because, one, a lot of these guys are still in that prime curve. Some of them may be on the way down it, like on the other side of it, like Freddie Freeman, still producing, still in his prime, but like on the other side of the peak, right? So like, same with Mookie Betts. I also expect a bounce back season from him. So yes, they're older, but I think they have some of the best old guys in baseball right now, right? Like Shohei is older than 32. So I agree. It's not a concern right now. And they do have some guys that look pretty good in the prospect pipeline that, could start to bring that median age down in the next few seasons. But I do think like adding a guy like Buxton is different, right? Because his talent level is different. If you added a guy who was like, let's say Kenley, and he's a reliever, so it's a little bit different. But like you add a guy like Kenley, who's not a needle moving reliever, but is old for baseball players, that doesn't help you, right? Like, so I think if they do go out and sign anyone to a long-term contract, if that player was out there like Kyle Tucker, you would ideally want a guy to, be in like his mid-20s at this point. Very similar to what they did with Yamamoto, right? We're going to give this guy a decade-plus long contract, but at least he's 25.
Yeah. Real quick before we continue with this, as you revealed your age, we had people saying you look good, that you don't look that old. We also had somebody call you ancient. A little bit of everything there for you, Anthony.
All right.
I do. It. Yeah, I agree with you. This is a delicate balance the Dodgers have to work, and Andrew Friedman alluded to it. Is they face World Series expectations every single year, and very rarely do teams like that have a surplus or abundance of young players on their roster, right? And it's just like as much as the game has gotten younger, you're not seeing first, second, third, 4-year players primarily leading the team to a World Series win. What the Dodgers have typically done under Andrew Friedman is they sprinkle them in, and we saw Andy Pages, like he's young and he's playing every day. You saw it with when Corey Seager was ready, when Jock Peterson was ready, when Cody Bellinger was like they bring them up kind of one or two at a time. Will Smith, same thing. So yeah, I'm not too worried about this. I do agree with you. I think in some sense the Dodgers, quote unquote, looked older this year than they actually sort of are, and I think some of that was injury. And it's twofold, right? Like the older you get, the more injury prone you can kind of become, type thing. So maybe that was a factor. Freddie Freeman has not used it as any sort of excuse, but I think his ankle, as much like he had surgery, I don't think he was ever fully right. I think that more is more to blame for some of his lateral stuff than.
And we got hints of that early in the season where they were like, "Look, he's going to be dealing with this all year. Like it's not a thing that's going to heal this season." And rest isn't necessarily going to make it any better. So, I think that it's Mookie's slump, the stuff that early in the season, which isn't necessarily age related, but the slump, Freddie's stuff. The pitching side of it, which a lot of that rotation is older than 30. And then it's easy to say like, oh yeah, this is an old team. But like they're also an old team because they got all-stars at a whole bunch of different positions.
That was the next point I was going to bring up is like who are you replacing? Who are you finding that's a younger and a better option than Freddie Freeman? That's that's readily available.
Realistically,
that's available, right? You're not, and so that is the other side of this coin. And sure, we discussed kind of Teoscar, like, do they potentially trade Teoscar Hernández and kind of get younger in that sense? But are you getting an everyday player? Are you getting the production that he can bring? I get some of the up and downs that Teoscar had in 2025. It was only a year ago that he had a great season, and pretty much everybody was clamoring for him to be re-signed. Mm-hmm. And sure, maybe it was for 1 year longer than some fans would have preferred, but very few people, I think, saw that contract and said, "Oh my gosh, what are the Dodgers doing?" Right? It was like,
no, it was not an outrageous contract. Which I push back on the whole like this is a bad contract stuff with folks. It's a 3-year deal.
Yeah,
it's less than $70 million, I think it was, or something. Like it's not a bad deal. And if he has a bounce back season, he gives you 30 and 100 again, like that is absolutely fine. Yeah. I think for a player like him too, you look at him, you look at Mookie, you look at Max Muncy, you look at Freddie Freeman, you look at Shohei. All of those guys are over 30. And all of them could be all-stars. Like, not out of the realm of possibility going, next season. That all of those guys could be at least in the running for an all-star spot.
Yeah. I think basically, look, the Dodgers, like they have this core in place, and you're gonna they'll find we're gonna see it in a year and a half, 2 years with one or two of the outfield prospects, assuming they're still part of the organization. That everybody keeps talking about. Like that's when you'll see, kind of a little bit more youth. Max Muncy's entering potentially the final year with the organization. They exercised their team option on Muncy for 2026. As of now, I know that you and Jeff discussed it. Muncy did go on foul territory and say, hey, like I'm open to an extension, but no indication that that's being discussed or will be discussed at some point. So if he isn't on the roster, does that then create an opportunity for Alex Freeland? And so you're getting younger in that sense. So it is there, and I feel like this is going to be a talking point heading into the 2026 season and throughout the year as well. Excuse me. It's just not something that I'm overly concerned about. Not yet. I think this core group has definitely one more year together where I feel comfortable in sure they're older, but they're not like, oh my gosh, old. These guys can't do it anymore. Now, 2027 is a different conversation. Like at that point, you probably want to see, you know, a little bit of some youth infused onto the team, but that's where it stands now. I like how the age stuff somehow turned into shopping at Costco and
the chat's going off.
yeah, that was interesting. Maybe I might have to share.
The original joke was that that at my age I'm old enough to buy clothes at Costco. Was the joke.
Is that only an old person thing, old people thing? Like, I thought Gen Z was shopping at Costco.
About that too. Yeah, is that an old people thing?
I thought Costco started to get trendy with the younger generation.
I don't know.
I'll share.
I actually don't know that I have anything aside from like socks up from Costco.
I'll share my Costco opinion maybe once we get to some questions. All right, so we've been teasing this a few times, and I don't want to say it's a difficult conversation, but maybe a frustrating one. If you missed it at the opening of the show, we did allude to, you know, the Hall of Fame voting being done today with the contemporary era ballot, and Fernando Valenzuela falling short and well short, frankly. It's a 16-person committee. In the press release that the Hall of Fame sends out, Valenzuela was mentioned among the players that received fewer than 5 votes. Because of that, he's not going to be eligible when this committee specifically reconvenes in 2028. He can be back on the ballot in 2031. The wait for him to be a Hall of Famer continues. The only player that this committee did vote in was Jeff Kent, former Dodger, if you want to take it that way. Although Kent, did say on his media call right after being voted in that he obviously would prefer to wear a Giants hat. Not his preference is to wear a Giants hat, not specifically compared to the Dodgers, but you know, it makes sense that he would make sense for him. Yeah, of course. Anthony, I'll turn it over to you. You know, kind of share some initial comments on the Fernando.
Yeah.
I feel like it's, you know, disrespect at this point.
We had some questions about like what that process is like. I think, you know, what the membership looks like. So the contemporary committee is it's made up of 16 players who are in the Hall of Fame, executives and veteran media people, and then they just take people who have come off the ballot and give them another shot basically at it. And then there's rules about, again, like how you stay on the ballot and such. I'll say this
real quick.
Yeah,
I can read the list of if people want the 16 names, just for.
Yeah, go ahead and read. It's probably okay. Can't hurt.
So let's see. So the group of 16 that was on the contemporary baseball era ballot committee was Fergie Jenkins, Jim Catt, Juan Marichal, Tony Perez, Ozzie Smith, Alan Trammell, and Robin Yount. So they're in the Hall of Fame. And then executives, Mark Adesanya, I completely butchered that. The Brewers guy.
Antanasio.
There we go. Thank you. Doug Melvin, Artie Moreno, Kim, and the old Dodgers executive. I don't want to mess up her last name.
Kim.
Yeah. Tony Reagans, Terry Ryan, and then Steve Hurt, Tyler Kepner, and Jason Stark. And also Jane. No, that was it.
Gotcha. Yeah. So look, the Hall of Fame, you can make it into the Hall of Fame as a player or executive or manager, somebody who has anything to do with baseball. Not just on numbers alone, not just on the back of your baseball card. Like there are ways for people to get into the game based on influence in the game, things like that. And so Fernando doesn't have Hall of Fame pitching statistics. He was very good for a long time. I will say this also, he does have some better numbers than guys who are currently in the Hall of Fame. Just based on numbers, would I vote him in? Probably not. However, I think that the fact that you can take that he's got really, really good numbers, and then the influence that he had on the Latino community, the Mexicans and Mexican Americans in the region specifically, And the way he changed an entire fan base for one of the marquee franchises in Major League Baseball to what it is today. And you go to Dodger Stadium for a game and you walk around and it's got to be 50% Latinos, right, Matt? Like, I mean, they are one of the communities that shows up year after year to support this team, to the point where 3 million fans for most organizations is like a milestone. For the Dodgers, it's a disappointment. They're looking for 3.8 to 4 million fans coming through their gates. And a big reason for that is because that community continues to support this team by, spending their money and going to games and buying merchandise and buying food and buying alcohol and all of that stuff. To completely ignore the impact, the cultural impact that Fernando Valenzuela had on Major League Baseball and on one of its marquee franchises is at this point insulting. I think it's disrespectful to the organization. It's disrespectful to him, and it's disrespectful to an entire fan base, not just Dodger fans, because I think what Fernando did was he debuted in 1981, and he took his stardom and it spread first to the community in Los Angeles. And then as the years had gone by, as the decades have gone by, Mexican and Mexican Americans and Latinos in general who have become baseball fans, a lot of that has been passed down generationally. And a lot of the roots of that fandom started because of Fernando Valenzuela and Fernando Mania. And to completely ignore how that is spread across the country, again, to me, it's insulting. And I think it's disrespectful to say, well, he just didn't have the numbers. Like, the fact that he's even on this list is sort of, ridiculous. You completely overlook a really critical aspect of what this guy has done. Like, what Hideo Nomo and Ichiro Suzuki is probably the main guy, but now Shohei Ohtani has done for the Japanese fan base, not just for the Dodgers, but across Major League Baseball. To say that doesn't matter, the way I feel the Hall of Fame has said that the Mexican and Mexican American fan base doesn't matter because of Fernando, again, it's insulting. And especially when you dig a little deeper and you consider what the relationship between the Dodgers and the Mexican and Mexican American community was when they moved to Los Angeles, and that he, by himself, with his performance in 1981 and then moving on forward, helped to repair a whole lot of that damage between that community and this organization. To say that doesn't matter, again, is absolutely insulting in the Hall of Fame, and this committee in particular should be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, a lot of that you hit well said, Anthony. I do want to, let me see. I saw, I didn't flag it. I think Aaron was asking, the big Fernando's case, holes are poked in it because of his stats, right? And you mentioned it. Like, sure, if you look at overall career, fine. Like, in some sense, his stats don't compare to what you would expect with the Hall of Fame. That being said, during the 1980s, he had 128 wins, and I know pitcher wins now have sort of been devalued, but back then it wasn't.
Yeah.
So his 128 wins
and I'll say this, it mattered more then because guys were expected to pitch 7 or 8 innings as a starting pitcher. Expected. That was the expectation, where now if a guy gives you five innings and 1 run allowed, you're like, all right, let's turn it over now. Like, then it was like, can you get us 9? And then if you can't, it's like, all right, well, if you give us 7 or 8, then we'll be okay. So the pitching win, I think, actually then did hold a little more weight than it does now, which I think now it holds almost none.
Well, it still holds a lot for some of us, Anthony.
For some folks, yes.
At least so I've been told. So his 128 wins during the 1980s are 4th most in MLB history during that span. So he was certainly getting the job. Like, he wasn't some pitcher who just, maybe was logging a bunch of innings and not contributing to the Dodgers. With that, during that same era, 1980s, the decade, threw over 2,000 innings, 122 complete games during that span. 1981 specifically, Rookie of the Year, Cy Young Award winner, and a Silver Slugger. So you mentioned like this isn't. I do, as much as I recognize some of the stats. Sure, he might fall short. This also isn't, for lack of a better term, some bum that people are clamoring to get into the Hall of Fame. That maybe he had one good year, was a flash in the pan, and everybody's saying, "Oh, but we really liked him. Please put him in the Hall of Fame." Like, I think, and I feel like that is sort of the narrative that's kind of been created is, "Oh, his stats just don't compare at all," and it's like, well, that's not true. Then, to your point, you layer in the cultural impact on not only the Dodgers, but the sport is like he was selling out Dodger Stadium, but then also when he was pitching on the road. I mean, somebody said it was for Fernando Mania for a reason.
Yep.
And then for me, and this could be a personal stance that maybe some people share or don't share. If Fernando wasn't going to get in through the BBWAA, fine. Like that seems to be pretty rigid in how they view Hall of Fame candidacy and things of that nature. And I see Go Dodger Blue Scarlet Buckeye. He must be upset that the Hoosiers put a hurting on the Buckeyes because he's asking if there's anything else to talk about. I mean, this is Fernando Valenzuela and Hall of Fame voting. Like, this is literally current news tonight. So yeah. I apologize. I don't apologize, but sorry. Anyway. These committees that come up, my perception of them is it's sort of an opportunity to not right or wrong per se, but like it's not like it's a little bit easy. Like it should be easier to get in through these committees, and that could just be my perspective that is incorrect in my viewpoint of it. But I do think that, again, the BBWA, if they weren't going to do it, fine. I think this committee, it could have taken into all the cultural impact that he had on not just the Dodgers, but the sport as a whole, and said, look, like we need to get him in. I saw somebody say, what point would it have been if he's, already passed away? Like, yeah, fine. Like this should have happened. Like there are a lot of people that believe he should have been in the Hall of Fame before he passed away. People have been
making this case and beating this drum for several years. Yeah.
So fine. Like, yeah, I wish for Fernando, for his family, that it would have happened while he was still here. That being said, just because he's passed away doesn't mean that it should just be continue to be overlooked. So, yeah, I don't know. I mean, just you mentioned it, like just a disappointing development, and not only to not get in, but to get so few number of votes was also surprising. Like I wasn't convinced that he would get in. I thought maybe it would be kind of close.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting it either. I don't think they've shown enough respect for his career and his impact ever. And so I did not expect this to really change considering who was on the panel, on the committee. But it doesn't mean that it should not be put out there. Because again, I think you are turning a blind eye to not just one of the Dodgers' most influential fan bases, but one of Major League Baseball's at this point in 2025 most influential fan bases. And so, players from, the Negro Leagues, players, executives who have had cultural, or not cultural impacts, but just impacts on the game outside of on the field, have made it into the Hall of Fame. And again, there are pitchers who have, you can argue have lesser numbers than Fernando who have made it into the Hall of Fame based on those numbers. And so it's pretty ridiculous. I put a link in the chat, but if it's too far up,
yeah, I could share it.
Bill Shaken from the LA Times wrote a really good case on why this committee, this is before tonight's vote or today's vote, but why the committee should vote Fernando in. It's really good. It kind of goes over some of the points that we made tonight. But yeah, it's again, just kind of a ridiculous thing that they're not recognizing the impact that he's made on Major League Baseball outside of just what the numbers are.
Yeah. We have a couple of super chats, a few of them. One is, or a couple of them are related to this. BKB4 says, should Hall of Fame ballots and committee votes no longer be anonymous?
There has been an effort to make the regular, like the general Hall of Fame ballots public. And basically what it is now is any member who wants to make it public can. And I think for the most part, I want to say it's over 90% of them who do make it public. So there is some transparency there. I don't know if this committee vote gets made public.
I don't think so. In
That part I'm
the
not sure of.
Yeah, in the emails that they sent out after the announcement, I didn't see any sort of breakdown of it. So
Yeah,
I don't think those are made public.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, like maybe it would help. I don't know how much it would change, honestly. Would it be nice to kind of see stuff? Yeah, I think so. It'd be interesting to figure it out. I do. There would probably be maybe one or two vote, like maybe was it Ichiro who wasn't unanimous by one
Yeah.
vote, right?
Yeah.
Like maybe
Right.
if that person knew, that they were going to be outed, maybe they end up voting him. But I don't know if we would have like a groundswell of a complete shift of like, oh, these votes are public now. Let's get this player in so we don't deal with the backlash type.
Yeah, and like let's say Kershaw isn't unanimous. Like I want to know who did not vote for him. Like, and I think those people should be made should have to make their case for why they did that. Like, write a column about it, go on a podcast about it. Talk to somebody about that, because what you're telling me then is that you probably don't deserve to have a Hall of Fame vote.
So I guess it's I don't think he's going to be unanimous. I think his postseason stuff will be held against him.
I think so too. Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think he'll be unanimous either. And I also think that it's probably going to start with Clayton Kershaw, but I would challenge every Dodger at this point who gets into the Hall of Fame or who is in the Hall of Fame currently and living, or who speaks in Cooperstown, anything that has to do with Hall of Fame. And you're a Dodger, you're a former Dodger, you went in with the Dodger cap, something like that. Say this, mention it, because if you've played for this team since Fernando became, since his debut, you played for this organization, you have an understanding of what that means. Yoshinobu Yamamoto does not he does not utter a phrase in Spanish during that World Series parade if Fernando Valenzuela did not have the impact that he had on this organization.
Yeah.
Because he knew what the people in that stadium watching him look like. He knew that they speak Spanish. And that doesn't happen if Fernando is never part of this organization.
Yeah, well said. Let's see, we had a comment. Hawaiian Kira is asking if any former Dodgers have made a statement about Fernando. I don't know.
Not that I've seen.
Not public, not since, I'm fairly certain, definitely not since the vote was made earlier tonight on MLB Network. Kerry Osborne at Dodger Insider, he wrote a similar article to the Bill Shaken one that we threw in the comments here, kind of discussing Fernando's career, and he had quotes from Mike Scioscia and Dusty Baker, and they both, were sharing why they believe Fernando is a Hall of Famer and should be in. Obviously, no surprise there. Again, like the stats stuff, like I get it, but I don't know. I think it also sort of boils down, like, what do you view the Hall of Fame to me isn't necessarily only like superstar players type things. Like it's when you talk about people that have impacted baseball and also been very good, I think he falls in that category. And sure, did he do it for 20 years? No. Did everybody who's in the Hall of Fame do it for 20 years? I don't think so.
No. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
anyway.
I agree.
Richard says Kent getting in before Fernando is Bush League, so he's not happy Jeff Kent made it in. Jose, on a lighter note, says your voice and my voice are identical, and go blue as well, or sound identical to him. Hopefully, Jose, I think that was a YouTube comment. I hope you're watching and not having to listen. Otherwise, that could get a little confusing for you if you're wondering who's speaking. Maybe we need to start saying our names and then speaking so people on the podcast don't get confused. All right, let's lighten the mood here and answer some questions to close out tonight's show. As a reminder, if you could just do us a favor and start it with the word question in all caps, that makes it easier for Anthony and I to pick them out. And as we're waiting for those to come in, I sort of teased should I share my Costco thoughts? I've been on record. I mean, I think their pizza's overrated. I've shared that before. The chicken bake used to be good, and then they changed it.
I'm going to stop you on the pizza one.
Okay.
Just because I have a question.
Yeah.
Is it overrated for $9.99?
That is a good question.
Because I think that's why people are about it. Is because if it costs $25, I think it's a different conversation.
That's fair. At $9.99, fine. It gets the job done. That being said,
big as hell.
That being said, I'll spend $15 somewhere else to just get a different pizza rather than the 10 for Costco.
That's fair. That's fair.
So that's right. And the other not a hot take, but I just Costco's fine. Like I mean I poke fun at their pizza and stuff like that, but and there in terms of shopping there, it's great. I just dread going to Costco whenever because it's just so packed. And when it's my wife and I who live together, and so we can't get a ton of things because it's all in bulk, and so it goes bad. So it's like, oh, we're going to Costco for a few things. Is this really worth it?
Yeah. You got to get the non-perishable stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah. So like
toilet
water
paper and toothpaste and whatever, like all that kind of stuff. It is a madhouse every time, no matter what. So I'm with you on that. The food thing, like the hot dog deal, like $1.50 for the hot dog and the drink is like unbeatable.
That is a crazy deal. And their hot dog is okay. Like it's good. Like it's solid. It's good. I meant like it. Yeah,
it's solid. For sure.
I think it's better than the pizza. I see. Let me see. I was going to throw it up. Aaron was asking me. Oh, here we go. Said I consider Panda good. How can I bag on Costco pizza? Well, that's because Panda Express has the best orange chicken known to man. I mean, that's a simple answer there, Aaron. Like, obviously, like that's what do you mean? All right. Let's see. Let's get and look, I'm apologizing to people in advance. It looks like we don't have a lot of baseball questions. So I'm going to run with what people have thrown in the chat, and we'll see what that. Here's one. I meant to bring this up. This is going to be interesting. Roseman wants to know, what team does Freddie go into the Hall of Fame as? This is quietly become a very interesting thing.
I agree. I thought there was no chance, no matter what he almost no matter what he did as a Dodger, that he would not go in as a Brave. There is a legitimate conversation now to be had. If he continues to produce the way he's produced throughout the rest of this contract with the Dodgers, and if they win again with him on the roster, man, there is a really strong case that he goes in as a Dodger and not a Brave. He got the MVP and a one World Series there with the Brave, and he was he's on their Mount Rushmore, I think, in their organization, and that's been a pretty storied franchise. So that's not nothing. But you look at this half of his career and what he's been able to do if things continue. Man, he has a legitimate case, I think, to go in as a Dodger. Obviously, it's up to him. But some guys choose to go in with no hat. Yeah. When these kinds of situations arise. So I think that's a possibility too. But it is no slam dunk anymore that he's just going in with the Braves hat when he makes it.
I think he ultimately ends up with a blank cap. I think that's something that Freddie would want as well. He's obviously been open about his tie, how he feels about Atlanta. I think right now, if he were to retire and go into the Hall of Fame in 10 years, if he didn't play anything, if his career if he chose to retire with Clayton Kershaw after the 2025 season, I think it's close, but it's tilted slightly in favor of the Dodgers. One, like you just look at it, 2 World Series wins versus 1 with Atlanta. And I know he went on a crazy tear with the Braves when they won that World Series, but to hit a walk-off grand slam in the World Series, to then hit a walk-off home run in the World Series with the Dodgers, I think that would be enough for me to push it. I think if he wins a 3rd World Series with the Dodgers before retiring, then that should cement it. But I could see his being, kind of.
And he's got the walk-off grand slam. Yeah. He's got the 18th inning home run. He's had signature moments for his career as a Dodger, and I think that's a big part of it also. Yeah. To sort of negate, to sort of balance out the MVP that he won in Atlanta. He's had like absolutely iconic moments with the Dodgers.
Yep. Here's another baseball one. Back to back says, if Bader is the only addition to the lineup, is that good enough? And he notes that the group struggled in October.
Yeah, I mean, they just won 2 World Series in a row. The offense was not great throughout the playoffs, aside from the Red Series. But that was like a team-wide struggle. And I think, you maybe can make up some of that if you have 2 above average outfielders in the 3 spots that are out there. Excuse me. So, that's why ideally, I like Buxton, because he's the best of both worlds in that position. But yes, I do think this lineup is good enough. They were one of the best offenses in baseball, the best offense in baseball by some metrics all season long. They just ended up struggling when it mattered most, and so that's sort of the picture I think that we're left with, aside from them winning it all.
Yeah. Real quick, going back to Freddie Freeman, Snafu says that Atlanta wouldn't let Freddie do the worm. Freddie is a Dodger. Obviously alluding to Freddie Freeman doing the worm at Mookie Betts' house for the World Series celebration, and then at Gavin Lux's wedding. Sticking on Harrison Bader, Scooter Booter says, I don't think Bader is a good pickup. We all argued and worried during October these guys couldn't hit and fail to score runs and snag those opportunities. He thinks Duran elevates the group a little bit. I'm split on.
He would be a platoon guy. He's also a left fielder, which is fine. Look, if they got Duran, I wouldn't be upset at it. I think it's totally fine. He's going to cost you some prospect capital that I think the Red Sox they don't need to trade any of those guys. They don't need to. And so I think that they're going to try to milk as much as they can out of moving one of those 2 guys that have been talked about. So that cost could be pretty high.
Yeah. And I know, I think there have been some issues with Duran hustling as well at times.
Yeah, look, you got to ask yourself too, also, why a team like the Red Sox, which is looking for more offensive production, and they've publicly stated that, is trying to move off this guy. If they are, because that also hasn't necessarily been reported by Boston media. It's been speculated by a lot of people, but they have not come out and said it. But if it's true, why would they want to move off that guy so desperately?
Yeah. Fair question. All right, let's see. What else do we have? BC says, if Kim is as bad as he was to end last season, do they send him back down to the minors? Yeah, I mean, the bench is, I don't think it's a lock that Ha-Seong Kim starts the season with the Dodgers. And it's not necessarily a slight of, again, this ties back into the conversation that we've applied to some of the prospects of, okay, is it good to have
prospect? They signed him as a prospect.
And do you want him sitting on the bench with the Dodgers starting once, maybe twice per week, or is he better off continuing to develop and play every day with Oklahoma City? To me, the answer is the latter.
Yeah.
And he came, it's worth remembering, he came up because there were injuries. Edman and Teoscar Hernandez got hurt pretty much right around the same. The Dodgers needed somebody. And so that is sort of what led to Ha-Seong Kim. And then credit to Kim, he made the most of his opportunity when he was up and then stuck around. But I don't know. I don't think he should be considered a lock for the bench. And it's not an indictment on him. I think it's just more of what makes the most sense for him.
Yeah. I think he's got a better shot than not at this point, because I don't know that Tommy Edman's going to be ready for opening day.
Okay. That's a good point. Probably true. All right. Let's see. What other baseball ones do we have here? Speaking of Tommy Edman, Smile says, if Edman is 100% healthy to play center field, do the Dodgers fill second base internally with Kim and Freeland? I get the general thought with this, and I expressed the same, sort of hope earlier when I said, maybe the Dodgers could sign Bo Bichette. The problem is banking on Tommy Edman to be 100% healthy to play center field it's not necessarily a safe bet. So it's really just tough to say. I mean, this would be purely speculative, honestly. And I mean, I don't even know if they would want him playing center field every day, even if he could.
I don't think so. They're going to treat him like they do their pitchers.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. What else do we have here? Let's see. We did that one. I did see. Oh, here. Jay, Anthony, this one's for you. It says, regarding your comment about numbers, if numbers should not be a criteria for induction, what should it be then? At the end of the day, it's about what you did on the sport.
Yeah, I'm glad you put this one up. I saw this one a little earlier. I never said it should not be about numbers, but the Hall of Fame in their guidelines for induction, or like their criteria for induction, include impact on the game outside of just the numbers, like impact on baseball as a whole. And we've made the case for his impact on the game, his cultural impact, his impact on where the sport has gone since then with fan base and all of that kind of stuff. So his numbers alone, just by themselves, probably, like, for me, I don't think I would vote for him. But I think when you have numbers that are not awful, right? Like, they're pretty good, and some of those numbers are better than guys who are already in the Hall of Fame. Read that LA Times story, and it gets a little more in depth about that part of it. But you take that and you combine it with his impact on baseball, for things that happen outside the field, off the field, and I think that it should be a no-brainer that he's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, there we go. We had a couple super chats come in, so let's get to these before we continue with the questions. 300 says, regardless, Freddie Freeman's number 5 is getting retired by both franchises. So he's saying, independent of what hat he has on in the Hall of Fame. I do agree with that. Laura, glad to see you in here. Laura says, who do you think Kyle Tucker will ultimately sign with? What about Bellinger? What about Suarez?
Man, the Kyle Tucker thing is tough for me. I've been thinking about this, and if the Blue Jays don't make a real run at him, I don't know what the other team is that gives him that long-term deal. Because the Giant, I would say the Giants, but the Giants have now come out and said that they're not going to spend, which is they are, what a franchise, man. Like, whatever. But I think that right now, just because the only smoke that we've seen has come from Toronto, I would say Toronto is the likeliest. I don't see, like, he's not going back to Houston, and then I don't think he's going to be a Yankee. So then the Red Sox are trying to get more offense, but, like, I don't think they're willing to spend that much money to get it. So I think they're probably out. It's tough, man. Like, I don't see that many teams willing to spend that much money. So right now I think it's the Blue Jays.
Yeah, that's who I'm going to pick. I think Blue Jays for Tucker. I think Bellinger goes back to the Yankees, and Suarez, I don't really know. I feel like that one, I think it'll be a kind of a surprise sort of random team that Suarez signs with.
Give me a random team, and I'll give you one.
Part of me wants to say the Giants. Like, they'll try to save face by saying, "Oh, actually, we decided to spend." Let's see, maybe Suarez ends up with the Mets. Diaz goes somewhere else, and the Mets pivot to Suarez to kind of, because the reports are, even though the Mets signed Williams, is they still are interested in Diaz, right? So they can fit 2 closers. So maybe they try to save a little money and go get Suarez.
Yeah, there you go. My random team for this would be, I'll say the Braves.
That's a good choice. I don't know what Joe Punk's issue is. I guess it's appropriate that Punk is in his username, but he's saying that Yamamoto speaks better Spanish than you and I, even though we're quotes Latinos. No, that is not accurate. I can tell you that right now.
Not accurate. I mean, although, I don't know what his progress has been, but, like, the first time we've heard him speak it, like, it's pretty solid for a person whose third language is now probably Spanish.
Yeah. I meant to bring this up when we were discussing Kyle Tucker. Aaron Vaughn is asking, why don't the Cubs just keep Tucker? Isn't that a weird, like, there's just been nothing, like, the Cubs basically have just no interest in spending to
a joke organization,
a guy that they traded for.
Yeah, their ownership is a joke. Again, so privileged to be fans of this regime of Dodger baseball. The Cubs, they were talking about last offseason about, like, oh, we're just trying to break even. And, like, I mean, that's just absolutely false. Like, if you really want people to believe that, open the books, and they won't. So that means it's not true. And I just think that the whole Tucker experience for both sides probably wasn't the best, it feels like. Like, I don't think he had any desire to re-sign there either.
Ray is saying that Yamamoto's Spanish is good because his dog Carlitos only understands that language.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Look,
Yeah,
man,
maybe that's
Yamamoto has endeared himself to the Latino community in Los Angeles with all these things. Like, it's stacking up. His case is he's going to be honorary here by the end of next season.
The next step to getting the next Infinity Stone, if you will, is like a sponsorship with one of the local taquerias or something like that.
There you go. Yeah, he's going to get Yoshito shirts pretty soon too.
Hey, you should have said that offline. That could have been that's our business deal. when we're selling, when you see Dodger Blue tweet Yoshito shirts tomorrow are available, you'll know that Anthony was the brainchild behind it. We'll give him a cut of the sales there. Another super chat. This one's from Edgar. Says, just figure out a way to get us to the playoffs. Focus on pitching, and we should be okay. Kim is fine. Let him platoon. He has big stage experience now. Teo is a tough decision. He says he does upset him. Yeah, look, the Dodgers do prioritize the playoffs, and that is certainly what they're going to focus on. That being said, and I think that's part of the reason why we discussed some of the likelihood of maybe adding some second tier type free agents or through the trade market type thing, and that's still sort of being okay because again, the way Michael Conforto didn't dictate whether or not the Dodgers won the World Series this year, it's going to be the same thing for a Harrison Bader type.
Chris Taylor did not dictate it in 24 either. I mean, that's why I'm saying, like, it's okay if they don't get a ceiling raiser. They can get a floor raiser, a guy like Bader. And his name's coming up a lot tonight just because that's the name that's out there. But, like I said, if they can get a guy who raises the floor, that's just as good at this point, I think, because the rest of the roster is so stacked still.
All right, let's see what else do we got here. Don't care. 187 wants to know, does Kike get added once the 60-day injured list is open? I feel like this is kind of the prevailing thought out there.
Yeah, same situation as last year, right?
Yeah, more or less.
Yeah.
I think even it might be even more likely now with, I don't know what his market's going to be considering he had the elbow surgery, whereas last year it seemed like it did get to the point. I think he might have shared this himself, where it got to the point where there were other interested teams and Kike needed and wanted to sign somewhere with spring training starting. And so he called the Dodgers and said, look, like, is this going to happen or not? And then, sure enough, they ended up working out a deal. I don't know what his market will be like just with the surgery. And again, he'll admit like his regular season was not, and of course, like the elbow injury impacted him, but he did not have a strong regular season. I think for his standards, he also didn't have a strong playoff performance at the plate. Like there's usually more slug that we see from him. I think you can attribute some of that to aggravating his elbow in the NLCS type thing. So yeah, his market, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Rosman wants to know, how long will Dave Roberts be the Dodgers manager?
Till he wants to be, or till he doesn't want to be anymore. Right? What was when the extension got signed last season?
Heading into 2025.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what was it? 5 years?
I forgot if it was 5 or was it 4?
Yeah, I don't know, but I think at this point it's until he says he's done.
Yeah, I will say that it was a 4-year contract extension that he signed in March of 2025. Dave Roberts will be the Dodgers manager until Guggenheim sells. Then I think maybe at that point there's just kind of sort of a all-around kind of turning.
Yeah, just the whole regime change, maybe.
Yeah. Rebecca wants to know, if Corey Seager comes back, would he play shortstop instead of Mookie? She adds that she knows that it's not likely.
Man, that's tough. That's a good question. I would say yes.
I would say no. I think that he would play third base, but also I can't get past like just the first block. Like she acknowledged that it's unlikely. Like I just don't see that trade.
Oh yeah, it's not happening. It's definitely not happening. But to play the hypothetical, I would say he would. I don't like that idea. I want Mookie to play shortstop. I think we saw why this whole last season. Yeah.
I mean, the interesting thing with this is whether Mookie or Seager, the over-under on either one of them playing shortstop at 2 years, probably taking the under on both of them, I think.
Yeah.
So that would be fun. Like, sure, like if they traded for Seager tomorrow, sure, maybe he's playing shortstop in 2026, but by 2027, I don't necessarily know if he would be. And I see I had a feeling that would happen. People are upset by my comment about. I'm not saying Guggenheim is going to sell.
They're not selling for a long time.
I just think at some point, like
especially now that they bought the Lakers, and like we're in this thing for the very long haul. I think with Guggenheim and Mark Walter.
Yeah, I wasn't. I wasn't suggesting that that's going to happen soon. Let's see, what else do we have here? I'm trying to find some baseball ones. No, it looks like here. GI wants to know, in my opinion, it was a big nothing burger, but thoughts on Dave Roberts being okay with a salary cap and floor. So this was he was on some Amazon show, I think with Kevin Hart and someone else. I forgot who, or maybe was it Keenan Thompson? I'm forgetting.
Yeah,
it was I know it was Amazon. I think Dave Roberts sees the writing on the wall and is trying to, for lack of a better term, sort of be a company man with MLB.
Yeah, he's a former player though. That is surprising that he touched it at all. Because I don't think a cap is going to happen this next CBA. I think the players union will die on that hill. Look, I think it's a nothing burger. I don't have an opinion too strong either way. I think he was trying to be diplomatic about it. But I was surprised that he gave any sort of like response aside from like just brushing it away.
Yeah. And
maybe this was his way of doing that, but like saying you're okay with the cap is like a big no-no with the PA.
That's true. BC is saying 0% that 0% chance that a cap happens. I know that you don't think one happens. I'm inclined to agree. I just think the owners are going to insist on it, and they're going to lock. Like I think the owners will miss
20 years.
But you don't think maybe they're more emboldened? Like I feel like it's gotten worse because now the Dodgers have won. Like, and the worst part of this is the Dodgers are the focal point when like the Mets are also like there are other teams that are spending. It's not as if the Dodgers are spending $600 million and every other team is at 100, 150, and the Dodgers are winning every World Series title year in and year out. But I feel like with them winning back to back, like all the deferred like they get blamed for deferred salaries and contracts and stuff like that. I feel like the owners just might lock the players out and say, okay, like we'll miss games.
3 things with this. If the owners really are trying to break even and some losing money, they're not willing to lose games.
Fair.
But they are willing to lose games. That tells you that they're liars. They're just straight up lying to you. There's that. The other thing is the problem isn't the Dodgers. The problem is teams like the A's and teams like the Pirates. And
don't give the Pirates some credit. Big report tonight. They offered Kyle Schwarber a 4-year contract.
Yeah, and that's because one, they know that's not going to get it done. And 2, because I think there's a grievance coming with this team if they don't start spending their revenue sharing on the roster. And so I think that the team that is going to hate, the teams that are going to hate the cap more than teams like the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees are the teams at the bottom end of the payroll list, because what comes with the cap is a floor. And those teams are going to have to start spending money on the roster instead of pocketing it. And like what the Giants are going to do this next season is like spending money on outside endeavors. There's a whole little restaurant bar area on the other side of McCovey Cove. And they're wanting to invest in that instead of the roster this off season. So those are the teams that are going to hate it more. And I think the third thing with this is that we've already, like, if a salary cap happens, what it means is it's going to have to. It doesn't just mean they're going to set a floor and a number for the floor and a number for the cap, and then Everything else stays the same. There will be a complete teardown and rebuild of the entire payment structure. So like when a rookie comes into Major League Baseball, the team controls him for 6 seasons, and you have 3 seasons of minimum pay, and then you go into 3 arbitration. That's all gone. Yeah. That is going to be completely wiped out. And you think they hate the free agent, the way the free agency works now, the owners? They're going to really hate it when a guy gets free agency after 3 seasons, because you are not going to get that concession of a salary cap from the PA without getting a restructuring of how the other economics and player spending works. And that's the part that I think probably isn't talked about enough. And it's why, like, I just don't think it's ever going to happen, because owners are not going to be willing to give in on that, because they're getting their best players on the cheap for several seasons. Like for some of these guys through their entire prime, depending on what age that they debut at. And to give that up is going to cost them more than no salary cap.
Good point. All right, let's see, what else do we have here? I think for the majority of these are kind of fun ones here. Sheba Jones wants to know, have you ever been to Korea Spa for skin treatment? I can't say.
I'd be in. I'd be down. Someone invite me.
Yeah, send recommendations to Anthony. I've seen this one. Rosman's been asking a couple times, who's going to replace Josh Burns? I don't know. I mean, they could do it internally. They could. It's also a position like
it was a position that was created for him, right?
Pretty much. Like the Dodgers have an expansive front office. There's plenty of executives in there. If they need to kind of promote someone, sure, like maybe they'll do it. If they have this position and there's somebody out there that they think would be a good add to the front office, they'll do it. But I mean, let's remember when Zaidi left to become the president of baseball operations for the Giants, they didn't hire a GM for a few years until Brandon. Like, then they gave it to Brandon Gomes. So
yeah, I don't think they necessarily need to replace Josh Burns. He was also sort of he played like free safety, I feel like, in that front office. And so like he wasn't just in charge of like one thing. So it wasn't like, oh, he's gone, now we got to replace that. Like I think they probably just, the Dodgers have a thing where like if they really think someone is smart, can help them, they'll just hire him and they'll create a position for him like they did with Burns. So I think, I don't think they're in a rush to fill the spot. But if someone comes up, then they'll do the same thing they did with that person, like they did with Burns.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we have here. Yoshi's asking, like Lakers Nation, do we have other sister sites associated with the Rams? If not, are there plans to maybe add one? We do have a Rams website. It's called Rams Newswire. We have I know you're not asking for this, but we also have a Raiders website. If you know anybody who's a Toronto Raptors fan, we have a Raptors website. We also have an NHL hockey, rumors, kind of focusing on just all general rumors with the league. So you can check that out. But yeah, we do have a Rams website, Yoshi. So hopefully you can find them.
I just got a text from Jeff Spiegel, and it said, "You guys are grinding tonight, still going?" with question marks.
The chat's keeping us going. Yeah, I have lost track of time, so I apologize for that. But hey, nobody's complained, Anthony. So I think we're entertaining the masses tonight. It's
there we go.
The winter meeting started. We had to have a big bonanza show.
There you go.
We're closing it out soon, people, in case you are getting tired of our voices here. We just have a few more questions left. Let's see. Oh, Hawaiian Kira wants you need to ask Jeff if he's wearing a Christmas sweater.
I'll ask him right now.
Tell him the chat is that's why we're still going. We've been waiting for Jeff to hop on once he's back home from his party. All right, let's see what else we have here. Back to back said, tell Jeff this is how Matt and Ant roll as well. All right. Greg, going back to the Costco discussion, best food that can be purchased at Costco, and he specifies in the store, not the food court.
I like going there for good cuts of meat.
Yeah, I did get steaks from there one time. We were having my family over, and so we needed enough for everybody, and we got fillets, I think, is what we ended up getting, and it was good. Yeah,
I do a Christmas brisket, which I think I've mentioned before, and I go to Costco because it's just way too expensive everywhere else, and it's a good piece.
I have also had their it's made like a turkey sandwich that they put on a croissant roll and it's served in a packaging with, I think, a Caesar salad. That's pretty good.
Oh yeah. They have a little like chicken taco pre-made thing that you can just heat up too, and it has like all the fixings on the side and stuff. Like that's not bad either.
Yeah, and it was frozen. Oh man, but what were they? Oh, like I think butterfly shrimp is what they were called. That was good with some steamed rice. So I'm not fully opposed to Costco. It's just everybody talks about their pizza and raves about it, and I don't think it's good.
Yeah.
But to Anthony's point,
I think it's more of a value thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see what else do we have here. We did these two. Dong wants to know, when is it okay to start playing holiday music?
Now,
if you listen to Coast, they started, I think, November 1st. They were way ahead. That's local 103.5 FM if you're in the Southern California area. But yeah, definitely by now if you haven't. I mean, at this point we're into December. It's going to be the middle of December before we know it. So
maybe we can close out on this piece of news I just got from Jeff.
Okay.
They said the chat wants to know if you wore a Christmas sweater. He said 100%, an ugly one too.
There we go. Now we need him to wear it on Tuesday's show.
Yeah.
I wonder if it was an I forget if he has an Oregon one that he's worn, because I feel like he might have done it last year as well. Maybe. All right. Last question here, unless we get anything in from somebody else. David says, less than 3 weeks away. Any idea what's on the menu, our menus, yours and mine, for Christmas Eve or Christmas Day?
Yeah, I am doing a brisket. And I will, half of it I'll cut into slices. And then half of it I will shred for tacos. And I'll do a taco bar. We host Christmas Eve for like a big group of family. And then folks will bring some sides and things like that. But yeah, for me, I'll do the brisket. It's usually like a 13-14 hour cook for me. Something like that. So yeah, I like doing that. I enjoy it. So that's what's my menu.
You said, is that for Christmas Day or Christmas Eve?
That'll be Christmas Eve.
Okay, so Christmas Eve is a Wednesday, which means Tuesday night show on the 23rd, Anthony's going to be doing this from outside while he's smoking everything and preparing. So he'll be multitasking. So make sure you guys tune in for that. That's going to be a can't miss episode.
Jeff sent me a picture of the sweater.
Okay, so describe it for everybody.
It is it's like a faded blue looking color with the snowman. It's snowing on the sweater, and there's like rabbits running around the snow.
Yeah, okay. It's not Oregon.
It's not Oregon.
All right, there you go. So if you are only listening to us on podcast, you need to come to the YouTube channel once you're done. We're at the 1 hour and 53-minute mark, and you can see a picture of the ugly Christmas sweater Jeff had on at his party tonight, and why I'm filling in as host. Although I planned, if Jeff was around, I was probably going to join you guys anyway. Oh yeah, Anthony, I forgot you are Thursdays and Sundays now, so my apologies. So Tuesdays you would have been
off season. We moved it to Thursday and Sunday because Bruce needed to have Thursdays off. So during the season, I was Tuesdays and Sundays, and then anytime I needed to fill in, and then off season Thursdays and Sunday.
Yeah, there we go. My apologies. So I guess we won't have the Anthony. Our views are going to be down now on the 23rd because you won't be smoking.
I'm off like from work and all that stuff. I'll just be prepping brisket. So I may pop in.
Okay. So we'll see. We'll have to leave everybody in suspense for that.
Yeah.
To answer this question, so then we can get out of this marathon episode. For me, no surprise. I've already asked my wife, for Christmas Eve to make the fettuccine alfredo. Because Anthony, I don't know if you heard, big breaking news for myself. I had a traditional Thanksgiving this year.
I saw the episode, yes.
So now I feel like I have been deprived of fettuccine alfredo, so I need to make up for lost time. So that'll be Christmas Eve. Christmas Day, my wife and I will make some breakfast here, probably like some egg sandwiches type thing with bacon, and then we go to my in-laws and hopefully doing carnitas there, and then we'll head to
Nice.
my family's house at some point. I'm not sure what they'll have. So they usually, I think actually it's typically Nicaraguan food, so like gallo pinto and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, nice. That's
If
cool.
anybody's familiar with that type of food, so that's that's our plans. Laura's asking, really, I think she's asking if I really did. Yes, I had. Laura, I can't believe you missed it. I had turkey, I had mashed potatoes, I had a corn casserole. So it was a unusual Thanksgiving for me, but it ended up being fine. Made little sliders as well 2 days later. It was good. All right. We're gonna end it there. Although, well, here we've been getting this question. Rihanna Keeves wants to know where is Blake, and why are we holding him hostage? Blake went through some laptop issues that needed to get repaired, and so he couldn't be on the streams. He recently got his laptop back. He's been handling a lot of website stuff for us, writing articles, helping with social media, things of that nature. I did talk to Blake today. I let him know that the people have asked us a few times where he is. I know there was some concern that maybe we had fired him or gotten rid of him. Not the case. And I told him that people are clamoring for Blake's return.
They need Blake content.
So we'll see. This week might be, get a little bit busier for us with winter meetings, depending on, what updates there are with the Dodgers and stuff of that nature. So you might see 2 or 3 of us on at the same time. And Blake maybe will be part of that as well. But he is still around, and he's still, people are saying he's stuck at, it's a small world at Disneyland. That could be. We don't know. But I will let Blake know again that people were asking for him, and hopefully we can get him back on some of these shows in the near future. All right, Anthony, almost we're at 157. So now I feel like my OCD is kicking in, and we need to figure out a way to just get this to 2 hours even and then cut it off.
Oh boy.
Say that in jest, of course. I want to thank everybody who joined us tonight. It is the off season, and we still do. Yeah, see, Aaron saying do a full 2 hours. These are the people. I'll shut us off early, and then the next time, if I'm hosting again soon, although Anthony's probably going to text Jeff and say never let him host again. My hosting duties are revoked after tonight.
This guy ran wild with the stream.
Yeah, they put him in the hosting chair, and he thought it was his show. In all seriousness, thank you everybody for joining us. I know that the winter meetings are starting this week, and so hopefully there will be some updates that we can cover with you all, and if not, different scenarios and things of that nature that we were able to discuss tonight. As a reminder, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Check out DodgerBlue.com. Find us on social media, DodgerBlue1958. We have our app. If you just search Dodger Blue in the App Store, you'll be able to find it. That's all. I think I finally have. You'll be done hearing from me for maybe a little bit. Again, our plan during the off season, as Anthony mentioned, Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday nights. Anthony is on Sundays and Thursday nights with Jeff. Jeff and Bruce are then on Tuesday nights. Make sure you're subscribed and that you have checked the notification to get updates from us, because there is, again, with the winter meetings happening, if there's unexpected things going on, announcements, trades, signings, whatever the case may be, we will look to come on here kind of unexpectedly. And so when we set up the stream, you'll be notified. That way you guys can join us. I don't know if it'll be 2 hours next time, but maybe it will be, and you don't want to miss out on that. So once again, Anthony, thank you for bearing with me tonight. Chat, everybody, podcast. We appreciate you guys as well, and we'll see you next time.